When I was growing up, I was trying to make a connection between the life I saw and the life I lived. I'll tell you a story, if I may.
What you just heard is the voice of writer James Baldwin reading from his acclaimed book, If Beale Street Could Talk. What you're seeing is the adaptation of that book by director Barry Jenkins. If you're unfamiliar with either or both artists, here's a short primer. Baldwin was an iconic voice of the civil rights movement, a voice that's been described as both poignant and subtle, with an emotional lyricism that highlighted social issues and inequalities. In 1986, a year before his death, Baldwin was named a Commander of the Legion of Honor, the highest civil distinction in France.
Baldwin's legacy is very important, very rich. I wanted to bring this book into the world intact.
30 years later, Jenkins' coming-of-age film Moonlight won the Oscars for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. Critics praised the film as quiet, tender, and intimate, tones very similar to Baldwin's. Jenkins himself once compared his work to the writer's, saying, "What I love about what Baldwin does is that the plot is important, but the emotions are much more what he's about. That's the way Moonlight works too." If Beale Street Could Talk is Jenkins' follow-up to Moonlight, as well as the first English-language feature adaptation of Baldwin's work. That's a big deal, because Baldwin's estate is notoriously protective of his work. During the New York Film Festival, the writer's niece told audiences she had loved one of Jenkins' past films and hoped her mother, the executor of the Baldwin estate, would give the okay for the Beale Street adaptation. When Jenkins finished his first draft of the screenplay, he said he compared it to Baldwin's own notes on adapting Beale Street into a feature film. At this point, it shouldn't be surprising that the two artists had similar visions for the film.
This book was written between 68 and 73. I felt there was a power in the movie taking place in a period 45 years ago and yet still being very relevant today.
If Beale Street Could Talk is a tragic romance between a couple separated as a result of a faulty justice system. Critics have praised the film for its take on social injustice as well as its poetic style. The film begins its limited release on December 14th.